We've got a very unusual presentation today offered by one of our favorite guest speakers. The course title is Firewalker, A Political Awakening. And I can tell you that in 2008 and 2010, Dr. Fred Johnson III ran for Congress as the Democratic nominee in Michigan's Republican-dominated second congressional. That's congressional. I think I must have stopped in for prayers at my church this morning.
I needed to
get me through this. A newcomer to politics, Dr. Johnson plunged into the race with energy and a clear vision for achieving victory. Failing short of that, he nevertheless scored some accomplishments never achieved before by a Democrat. Applying the very same energy in his 2010 bid for Congress, Johnson learned that while his Republican counterpart was a challenge, fellow Democrats opposed him in a manner that completed his political awakening. You may know that Dr. Johnson is the Guy Vanderjack Endowed Professor of History here at Hope College. He is a graduate of Bowie State College, now known as University of Bowie, Maryland. He is a Marine Corps vet, having served as a communications electronics officer and an infantry officer in the reserves. He earned his master's and doctorate degrees at Kent State University. And in 2015, Dr. Johnson completed his MD at Western Michigan Seminary. In 2019, he was awarded the Medal of Honor by the Daughters of the American Revolution, the highest honor bestowed by that organization. Will you please help me greet Dr. Fred Johnson?
Thank you. Good morning. Given that I was running in this part of the country as a Democrat, maybe I should have titled this presentation as Morons Are Us. But what I wanted to do this morning is different from my usual presentation, which is a lot of visuals. I love visuals, pictures, and so on. But I figured that the best way to help you all understand what happened in 2008 and 2010 was to tell you stories from the campaign trail, as opposed to some, more academic presentation on here's what campaigning is about. You all know what campaigning is about because it's beamed into your living rooms and your TVs all day, every day, every year. So this came about as a result of the fact that my good friend Scott Vandersoop, who was the former dean of social sciences at Hope College, had run for office at the state level as a Democrat, I think maybe the year before, during that same year. Scott did not win, I think, the previous year. But people had been talking to him about trying to find someone to pose a good challenge to the then incumbent Pete Hoekstra, on the Democratic side. And it seemed like in the year of Obama, let me just be real with you all. In the year of Obama, finding a Black candidate with a military background, who was working at Hope College, West Michigan, who seemed to check all the boxes on, maybe, a little bit left, but not too far, and all these other things, and didn't go around, advocating burning the American flag. Maybe this might pass. So I was approached. And I said, well, let me think about it. I wanted to do what people in West Michigan say a lot. Let me pray on it, which is what I did. I knew where I was politically, regionally, demographically, and I also knew that it was going to be a heavy lift. And as people told me again and again and again, I promise you, if there's one phrase I've learned to hate in the English language, it is uphill climb. So I eventually told Scott, and the person that ended up being my initial counselor, sure, I'll do it. I figured that as an American citizen, odds notwithstanding, American history, it was my right, my duty, my obligation and to do it for all the people that have come before me who had done impossible things to earn me the right to do it. So to not do it would be an insult to them. One of the first meetings I had was with a guy who's a known something of a good Democratic campaign handler in the Grand Rapids area. And his name is Dave Doyle. And so I went to Grand Rapids and said, you got to meet with Dave. I went there in Grand Rapids and met with Dave. Let me just read to you from the memoir I've been writing on this about the meeting we had to give you a flavor, the kind of idea of the support I wasn't going to get. We met for breakfast at the New Beginnings restaurant near Gerald R. Ford International Airport in Grand Rapids. After we placed our orders, Dave said, so are you really serious about running it for Congress? Yes, I'm already raising. Have you gathered signatures to get on the ballot? I'm just starting. Jack said that Jack is not the real name. Jack is the name of the person that came and asked me to run. Jack said that once we find a campaign manager, that'll go much, that it's not too late to back out. Why should I do that? Dave gazed out the window. This is a brutal process, especially if you lose. I hear what you're saying, but I have no intention of, you got no money, no experience, and no backing from the party. He looked back at me and settled into a seat. And besides, the Democrat hasn't been elected in Michigan's 2nd Congressional District since. He looked out the window again. I can't even think of anyone who remember. So I've been told. You should have also been told that Pete Hoekstra is no pushover. He's an incumbent, and his wealthy masters will never let a Democrat win their congressional seat. I'm not afraid of opposition. I will overcome so many obstacles that our server arrived with our meals. I waited till he finished, setting down our plates, and then said, I'm no stranger to obstacles, so I'm prepared to, look, you seem like a nice guy. Dad said, slurping some coffee. Hope's a good school with a good rep. Why get mixed up in this business? It's my duty as an American citizen. I've always told my students that nothing gets fixed by merely complaining. If people are dissatisfied, they need to get involved instead of sitting on the sidelines. They dropped his fork and started laughing. This is too much. You really don't believe in all that red, white, and blue Captain America crap, do you? Dave's chortled dismissal of cherished values that I believe had moved people to do battle for the abolition of slavery, fight for women's suffrage, struggle for civil rights and voting rights, and try to end poverty in America made me lose my appetite. I pushed aside my plate. What's so funny? Let me ask you something, he said, still softly chuckling. Dave resumed scarfing down his breakfast. How do you feel about being Fred who? What are you talking about? That's who you'll be the day after losing the election. Why are you so convinced that I'll lose? Because you're a Democrat running for office in Ottawa County, one of the most solidly Republican districts in the country. How are things supposed to change if we don't try? I asked him. I don't expect victory to come without a fight, but I also know that failure is guaranteed if we don't try. Nice word, but politics is the art of the possible. And out there along the lake shore, a Democrat winning a congressional race is just not possible. I looked out at the passing traffic and thought about all the naysayers who'd warned Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and Martin Luther King Jr. that winning freedom and full citizenship for Black people was just not possible. All the doubters who told Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Lucretia Mott that women voting someday was just not possible. All the neighbors who told my mother that raising 5 kids into successful adults all by herself was just not possible. As a server passed by, I said, I'll take my bill, please. He nodded and hurried off. Dave smirked as he wiped egg yolk from the corner of his mouth. I hope you're not discouraged. Now, what would make you think that? I said. His smirk melted into a thin line. Okay, you're pissed. Stay that way. It'll help after the election when voters won't remember your name, your face, or why you ran. To them, all you'll be is Fred who. And that was my first meeting with a guy who was supposed to help me. After that came the first fundraiser or the first in-home meeting. You all know that when candidates are running for office, they'll visit people's homes, people host them. So this was my first one. And while there, After I got introduced, I made my speech. Introduction included, he's spent a good part of his career in industry, and he's currently a history professor at Hope College. Meet our next Congressman, Fred Johnson. Resounding applause. Jack stepped back as I stepped forward and waited for the clamor to diminish. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming out. I looked at Jack and Ruth standing together with their arms linked. Let me first thank Jack and Ruth for hosting this event. Much appreciated. Loud applause. As Jack said, we're at a crossroads. The middle class has been abandoned while Wall Street crooks profit again. Enough is enough. Republicans have dominated this district since 1873. And it's time for a change, I think. How about you? Heads nodded as people clapped and smiled. For too long, our public schools have been left to die on the vine. Tax dollars are squandered while our infrastructure crumbles. Billionaires have rigged the economy to make sure that the least capable pay the highest taxes. I think it's time for a change. How about you? Or another roar of approval. I'm running for Congress to fulfill the dream of Thomas Jefferson, who wrote in our Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. A hush fell over the crowd. People exchanged confused glances. I captured them with my sweeping oratory. Well, it didn't go well. Later on, my host said to me, what the hell was that? What do you mean? I was letting them know, what's all that blathering about the Declaration of Independence and Abraham Lincoln? People don't care about that crap. They want to know who you are, what you stand for, what you'll do for them. But who I am and what I stand for is informed by everything I said about the Declaration and Lincoln and all that crap. Jack rolled his eyes. You got a lot to learn. What's wrong with mentioning the documents and people who shaped our nation? Since I'm going to Congress, I thought it'd be nice to pay respect to you first need to get elected. People care about what matters to them, not you. I hear you, but those ideals are why people came here today. Without those, no. People came here today because of me, my host said. They wanted to see if you're a credible candidate or just another disappointing clown. Right now, you might as well be wearing face paint, oversized floppy shoes. He looked me up and down like his eyes were painting my body in disdain. Word of advice, get your blank together. And that was pretty much my introduction. I was told that I had to talk to get the businesses on your side as much as you could. And my campaign advisors at that time said, there's a very prominent businessman in town. You need to go talk to him right now. So I made the appointment. Now understand that everything I'm doing completely cold, inexperienced, and just plunging right in because the only way to get something done is just to go do it. So the fact that I had no experience was no excuse. I also had no experience when I started teaching college or joined the Marine Corps or anything else I've done. So I strode confidently into this person's office. I was assured they're a Democrat, don't worry about it. They'll get on board. Besides, you need their money, so on and so forth. Yes, I did. I'd already figured out, it had already been shown that I spent an inordinate amount of my time on the phone asking for money. All the issues that I wanted to talk about were still not going to get talked about because you cannot run a campaign without money. The first time you say we need to put up a billboard or get flyers or shoot this or do that, the next question is, well, how much will it cost? And if you're not self-financed or you don't have big backers, guess what? That means on the phone, raising money, hours and hours and hours every day. So I finally walked in and they agreed to see me. And my guest said, after thanking me for coming around, I said, thanks for meeting with me. He was full of smiles and energy. No problem. Carl said you wanted to talk about some kind of political initiative. What's the story? His directness reminded me that in making the appointment, I've been cautioned that he'd be on a tight schedule. Look, I said, call me Gordon. Formalities to such a board. I cleared my thought. Okay, I'm ready for Congress, and I was advised that you'd be a good supporter. He sat upright, bolted upright. His eyes bugged out, stared at me for a long, long moment, like he was watching me shape shift into a werewolf. You're running for, do you mean against Hoekstra? Yes. He shook his head several times as if trying to reset his belief gene. As a Republican or a Democrat? My forehead got moist. As a Democrat. He chuckled. You can't be serious. But I am. It was suggested that I meet with you about supporting the campaign. His chuckles gave way to boisterous laughter. They got louder and louder and louder. I'm sorry, he said, gasping and holding his stomach. It's just that, oh my gosh, this is too good. He chortled some more until getting enough control to ask, who suggested that you talk to me? An advisor. Oh, brother, you've been horribly misled. I'm a Republican. I grabbed the tissue from the nearby box. I wiped my forehead till the paper was soaked. Then I grabbed another one. I think I know what happened, he said. People in my family are Democrats, but not me. An honest mistake, I guess. You're lucky it happened with me. Some of these hardliners would grind you into a hamburger. He finally composed himself enough to speak without dissolving to hysterical laughter. Do you know what you're up against? No Democrat running for Congress from West Michigan has been elected since, yes, I know. The first ice age or maybe longer. His grin dimmed. Do you know it's an uphill battle? I'd already lost track of the number of times I'd heard the phrase uphill battle, and had been hoping that doubters would choose something different when describing my dim fortunes. He spoke in earnest. Only way you got a prayer is to run as a Republican. But who knows? With Obama doing so well, maybe things are changing. You don't care that Obama's a Democrat? He's running for president. You want to represent district in Congress, you had to be a Republican. Presidency is one thing, Congress is different. Fair enough. Well, if you'd have to change your affiliation to Republican. I said, and that would be the first lie I told. Fair enough. You got guts, I'll give you that. Look at this wall clock. I wish you luck. I'll tell my family about you. It's admirable, but like I said, you got an uphill battle. We shook hands and I sprinted for the exit. Another meeting was with a person up north of Muskegon, who either at the time, I can't remember if she was already in state office or running for state office, but either way, I was told again, you must meet with this individuals. All these people, list of people, you must meet with this one, meet with this one, you must meet with that one. So I was doing all the must meet with people. I was on that circuit. So I still had not found a campaign manager yet, so my informal structure was still being put together. I had been door knocking. Most people were friendly and either signed or politely declined my petition. Then there were the others. I would support a damn Democrat even if they cured cancer. One person said, now get off my steps. Blank, no, I won't sign your petition, a woman hollered. She looked over her shoulder and said, Robbie, let Jinx out. You got 15 seconds before my Rottweiler's on your ass. Another man said, a colored congressman, go to hell. He slammed the door in my face. Josh and I started comparing notes on who got cussed out the most and the worst. The one who had to buy a coffee or a snack. Racial insults got bonus points. One particularly competitive day, I got 4 F-offs, 2 SOBs, and one very heartfelt N-word. You're a slacker, Josh said. That's nothing compared to my 4 zipper heads, 2 gooks, 3 chinks, and 1 effing Democrat slopehead bastard. He's Asian American. Guy helping me. This is in West Michigan, not due West South Carolina, not Birmingham, Alabama, not Gulf Coast, Texas, the North. Well, coming from the South, coming from a Southern family, and having experienced that kind of stuff in the South to an even larger and worse degree, to run into it again, recalled instantly. And I began thinking about psychologists who say that you can maybe get over something, but do you ever really get past it? So the favorite word today is triggering. If in fact a person could be triggered, those are triggering moments where I was back home in the South during certain events in my childhood that sometimes left me paralyzed emotionally and intellectually. I literally could not think in those instances. And to say that I was afraid was an understatement. Because, well, you simply cannot understand what hatred is until you're standing in front of a mob of people that want to tear you apart limb from limb just on the basis of who you are. That is otherworldly hatred. That's when you can start to believe that there is a supernatural thing called evil. Later on, I was at this hotel in Muskegon waiting for this appointment. My sister kept calling me on the phone. She called to tell me that down in the DC area, she and some friends of mine from high school and college were going to put together a fundraiser for me. I said, great, because I had made a plan, to go down to Washington to visit the DCCC, the Congressional Campaign Committee, the D-Trip, where apparently that's supposed to be the nerve center for all the strategy, all the support about fundraising and anything else you need to begin a campaign. That's where you go to get your advice, get your help, to find out what can you do, guys, do to help me prosecute this thing and make this work. So Caroline called to tell me that. And then my appointment showed up. So I said, hey, baby, sis gotta go. Looks like my breakfast appointment is here. Love you, big brother. Talk later. Love you too, most of the time. We laughed as I hung up and I stood. You must be Martha. I said, the one and only. Good to meet you. I shook her hand. Thanks for taking the time. Jack spoke so highly of you. I thought it best to meet you as soon as possible. A server brought menus and Martha said, I'll just have coffee. Then she looked at me. So, how's campaigning? It's a steep learning curve. Just keep at it. It gets better. That's good because I want to be better. She smiled. I got a day full of meetings, so let's get to the point. Are you pro-choice or not? And I thought, before my coffee? She stopped stirring her coffee and looked at me with intense, unblinking eyes. I'm still thinking my way through the issue, I said. She flushed red. Either you are or you're not. Now hold on. This is a pretty important issue that's important to a lot of people on both sides. So I think it's wise she tossed her spoon onto the table, grabbed her purse and stood. Tell Jack that he'll be hearing from me. Proceeded to walk away. Wait, I said, we can't talk about this? She glowered. Let me explain something, Mr. Johnson. She said my name like she rolled it in a nice fat glob of spit and smacked me with it. I've been fighting for women all my life. Nothing's more fundamental than a woman's right to choose. It's not up for debate or negotiation, understand? Yes, I do. I really do. But I grew up with an only boy of 4 sisters, so I know something about the challenges women. Don't patronize me. Just like me saying that because I got Black friends, I know about the struggles of race. It's not the same. You're right, I said, raising my voice. Because historically, even when Black and white women have agreed on matters in gender, Black women still battled race. So don't you patronize me. She studied me for a moment, slowly pulled her chair back out and sat down. You'll have to find a better way to respond to that pro-choice question. I will, once I've thought it through. I'm thinking it through. For John Clinton, so you're determined to stick to that position? I'm thinking it through. I've had my own private views about this, but now having to suddenly publicly share my thoughts, I think it's prudent to inventory how I really feel about things. Unbelievable. You're running for Congress and you don't have a position on one of the most important issues for women. People in the pro-life movement feel that their issue is very important, just like you do yours. It's called fairness. Now we're getting somewhere. You support the pro-lifers? I value the sanctity of life, but I also value life past birth. And you intend to stick to your non-position position, even if it costs you support. I fought the urge to roll my eyes. I need all the support I can get, but I lean forward. I'm not going to be bullied into taking a stance on anything. She chuckled, but it was brittle and bitter. You're aware that I have connections to the Progressive Coalition, aren't you? Yes, Jack informed me. He also told me to watch my step. You're doing a poor job. Sorry you feel that way. My advisor entered the restaurant, hurried over. Good luck, Mr. Johnson, she said. You're going to need it. She left as Josh near the table, covered his hand and started to speak, but she marched right past him. What happened, Josh said. She didn't like the menu, I answered. Come on, let's get to Ludington. We're on the way up to Ludington that day for yet another meeting. It became very clear to me very quickly that I've been told that politics was an intensely personal business, and you can approach them with a very, 80,000-foot academic approach. But at some point, and I don't know what that point is, but at some point you cross a threshold where you do get emotionally invested in it. And maybe it's the capacity of human beings to delude themselves with, maybe I can really pull this off. Maybe I really can win this thing. But then you start meeting people and seeing just how important issues are. And then you tell yourself, I can't stop, because the country can't be allowed to go in this direction, whatever that direction might be. And then you meet people on the trail who are so desperate for change. They're living with conditions that must change. They've done everything they know how to do. They've used every resource they've got. It seems like the entire cosmos is conspired to slam them to the earth and just suppress them again and again and again. I kept thinking all the time about John Adams or James Madison. If men were angels, there would be no need for government. Men are clearly not angels. So there's a crying need for government, but it must be government that works for and not against people. Government that takes the least of those and at least treats them with as much dignity as those who have the billions and can put themselves behind gated walls. So I told my students in the slavery and race class and the race and ethnicity class, I don't care. Sometimes the class starts with, people want to talk about who suffered the most. Irish Americans, Irish Catholics coming over, yes, they suffered. Native Americans, yes, they suffered. Black people, obviously they have suffered. Chinese immigrants, yes, they suffered. I said, I'm not in the Pain Olympics. We're not keeping score here. This is the United States of America. Let's just agree that none of it should have happened. None of it should have happened here. And most of all, never mind the United States. It shouldn't have happened up under the watchful eyes of God. How about that? If you truly believe that we're all created equal. If you don't believe that, well, then you'll find a different way of doing things. Nancy Waters is well known up in Muskegon. She, a number of years ago, bought a radio station. She's a millionaire. She and her husband, Jim, who's deceased now, they were millionaires. So African-American millionaires up in Muskegon. There was another must go see them meeting. So I did. And by that point, the person who had advised me had asked me to run for office had started making hints about leaving me in the campaign. For several weeks, he'd been dropping not so subtle hints like, my time is limited. This is supposed to be your show. I didn't retire for this. Every time he griped, I thought about what he said the day I agreed to run. I'll do everything I can to help you. I long concluded that promises in politics don't have the lifespan of an ice cube in the Sahara. But Jack's desire to ditch the campaign still felt like a betrayal. On the other hand, it had to happen because Jack wasn't the one who'd soon be on stage with Congressman Hoekstra during debates. He wasn't the one making fundraising phone calls right now. He also wasn't the one already getting poked, prodded, and probed by the press. The campaign was mine. It was time to seize total ownership of it, assuming that this Josh and I got along. Jack would be free to go. So I met with Nancy, and we did have a good meeting. She said, so tell me about yourself. What makes you someone who can win this race? I sat tall and shifted into high performance mode. For all her poison charm, she wasn't kidding around. So I boldly shared the highlights of my career in the Marine Corps, at General Motors, Contel Page Telecom, aircraft braking systems in Ohio, and now Hope College. Throughout the meal, she kept eye contact with me. Every so often, she arched an eyebrow, an approving eyebrow, or smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. You got some experience, she said. How do you feel about these bailouts? Not a fan. But I also don't want millions being thrown out of work. Too big to fail is why Clinton should never repeal Glass-Steagall back in '99. She asked for clarification. I told her what she probably already knew about the Depression-era legislation that had mandated the separation between investment banks and commercial banks that had been allowed to amalgamate anyway, and then bought insurance companies. So now they got it to be so big where if any one of them failed, it would drag down everybody else behind them so that we couldn't allow them to fail. So therefore, the people they had preyed upon, the taxpayers, had to eventually bail them out. Just in case you don't like twisted logic. FDR signed that legislation to prevent the kind of Wall Street mugging that caused the Great Depression that produced this current crisis called the Great Recession, I said. What about people who say that today's conditions aren't like the Great Depression? I'm betting that the people who've lost their jobs, homes, and life savings don't agree with them. All they know is that someone crashed the economy and the perps are walking free again. No argument there. Besides, even if the causes aren't the same, obscene greed on Wall Street remains. It's not right that so few get away with ruining the lives of so many. Sounds like you got a heart for struggling people, she said. They're the folks I want to help. A government that's for and by the people shouldn't be rigged to coddle just the privileged few. As we ate, she probed my views about the justice system. It should be called the just us system, I said. The whole thing was corrupted the moment Black people were reduced to being 3/5 of a person in the 1787 Constitution. She paid for our meal. I like that part. How much do you know about this district? I know that Ottawa County is Republican, is a Republican's anchor, and that Muskegon County has the numbers to offset their strength. Only people come out to vote. That'll be your challenge. Any suggestions? Work, 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 and then work some more. There's been lots of that already. I said, there'll be lots more. But because Muskegon's different, and is it ever? As in, we're racially polarized, and it really is. It's been that way for a long, long time. The same could be said for vast portions of America, I said, except that you're running for Congress here. Watch your step and be careful who you trust. The racism you experience in the South can be just as bad here, maybe worse. Does that probably explain the challenge of voter turnout? She stopped and nodded. People stop voting when they don't feel it matters. You need to convince them that otherwise. Any advice you can give me? People may not know all the ins and outs of government, but they know when their leaders care about them. Get to know people. Let them get to know you. That alone will put you miles ahead of the current representative. Have they been that out of touch with African Americans? Nancy looked at me like I had just spoken gibberish. I gulped and said, I'll do as you say. She exhaled in relief. Your timing's good because folks are excited about Obama. The idea of elected the first Black president showed open possibilities for you at the congressional levels, but some of our white brothers and sisters may not be too happy about Obama or me, I said. In a nutshell, yes, she said. She gave me more details about Muskegon's racial history. During World War II, the factories needed more labor, so they recruited Black Southerners. Times were good, but when the war ended, well, let's just say old habits died hard. Historians have noted that lots of white Southerners came north looking for jobs, just like Black people did. A good number of those whites had come during World War I, Nancy said. They brought all their racist baggage with them and passed it down. Insane. Given our national history, it's a miracle that Obama's making progress. It's not real until he wins, she said. Same goes for you. What's the situation with Democrats in Muskegon County? Mostly good people. Some of the elected officials I wouldn't trust any farther than I could throw them. They really think no one notices them using their positions as fronts for their side businesses. She put out a registry from her purse, started filling out a check. I'm supporting you because what you're doing is courageous and overdue. So the check out and handed it to me. Anything I can do to help, let me know. I spread the word that we finally have a congressional candidate who might actually win this thing. That was the first time I'd heard that. And for someone of prominence, let me tell you something. Cue Hollywood music of and the bum line, the sunbeam on your forehead, one of those moments. And there were moments like that let you know that this is not only it, you're not doing the right thing. It can win, it can happen. It's going to work. It can really take place. But then there was those really wrenching moments. Like the sisters I found up in Muskegon. These two women were living together, and one of them had a son with some learning challenges. They looked to be in their late 50s when I knocked on the door. And when I sat in their living room, Ellen said, "So who are you?" "My name's Fred Johnson. I'm a Democrat running for Congress, and I'd like to ask for your support." "Okay," Pearl said, "why should we support you?" I recited all the talking points that I've been given. "Those are all nice platitudes," Pearl said, "but that doesn't answer the question." "Let's try this," I said, adopting my dazzle the audience tone. "Why don't you tell me your concerns, and then I'll have a better..." "Do we look like fools?" Ellen said. "Huh? I mean, no, ma'am. I'm sorry if my sister asked why we should support you, not why we should support the Democratic Party." Pearl crossed her arms. "You show up at our door asking for our support, and you can't even tell us why. Even if we agree with you, it doesn't explain why we should support you. Or are you like all the rest of them?" Ellen demanded. "No, ma'am, I'm not." "I mean, what do you mean like the rest of them? Are you interested in helping us or helping yourself?" "I want to help people. You can't help us if you don't know us." Ellen stepped forward. "I'll ask you again. Are you like the rest of them?" "This is my first time running for office. I don't even know what it means to be one of them." "It means you take time to listen," Pearl said. "It means valuing people like us as much as you do the big donors. Is that clear enough for you?" "Yes, ma'am." "It also means being more interested in us than in our votes." I glanced at my watch. At least 15 minutes had passed for an exchange that so far hadn't done anything more to help me sympathize with the plight of punching bags. "Lady, sorry for disturbing you," I said, backing away. "Have a good day." "Why are you leaving?" Ellen said. "Do you want our support or not?" I stopped and said, "Of course I'd like your support, but frankly, after the last few minutes, I'm not sure how to get it." "Listen to what we have to say," Pearl said. She made a sweeping gesture toward the neighborhood. "It didn't always look this way, Mr. Johnson, and we weren't always so vocal. But you're the first politician you are the first politician who's ever bothered speaking to us face to face." Her eyes watered. I'm almost giving up hoping." "We're not trying to be difficult," Ellen said. "We only want you to understand. Believe me, I'm trying." "It's been so hard," Pearl said. Ellen stood quiet as Pearl explained. She'd been the franchisee of a fast food restaurant near Columbus, Ohio, until Wall Street's too big to fail meltdown had moved corporate to reorganize and close stores. The money Pearl had to borrow to open her business had disappeared in the chaos of the financial crisis, and she'd fallen from being a hardworking franchisee to shamed debtor. "I didn't have any choice but to move back here and stay with Ellen," Pearl said. "Let's face it," Ellen said, "no one moves to Muskegon." "There was nowhere else to go," Pearl said. Ellen was barely getting by on her Social Security. Having extra miles in the house didn't help, especially since one of them was Pearl's mentally challenged 34-year-old son, Lester. He's got a job at a local retailer, but they never let him get 40 hours, Pearl said. Ellen's face reddened. "He sometimes gets up to 39 hours, then they tell him to go home because if he gets 40, he qualifies for benefits." "We've worked hard all our lives," Pearl said. "We don't want handouts, but we need help. We've called, written letters, tried to see people. No one cares. Why won't someone help us?" I shook my head. I don't know. I'm so sorry. "We're afraid to go to the doctor or dentist," Pearl continued. "My son's epilepsy has gotten worse. The last doctor said he needed some kind of..." Pearl looked at Ellen. "What's the name of the treatment?" "I can't remember, but it was expensive." "I lost a husband and two brothers in Vietnam," Pearl said. We've always paid our own way and helped others when we could, but now we need help and no one's there for us. Ellen sighed. It'd be just so much easier if I just died. Then Pearl and Lester could at least have their house and the money for my insurance. Pearl threw Ellen an admonishing glance. I've asked you not to talk that way. We're not naive, Ellen said. Even if you get elected, there's probably not much you or anyone can do. All we want to know is, do we even matter? She started crying. I didn't know what to say or do. You guys met her, I said. I promise. I gently touched Ellen's forearm. I'm so sorry the systems fail you. Pearl put her arm around Ellen. I put my arm around Pearl. We stood in the doorway, that forgotten home and forgotten mosquito. No one cares, Ellen sobbed. They don't know, and I don't think they want to know. I'll blink hard and fast to keep my own eyes dry. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm so sorry. Ellen pushed me away and wiped her tears. Would you like some coffee? Coffee sounds great. The sister stood aside and I entered. We sat down and Ellen said, do you want regular or decaf? I sat down on the couch and looked around. The house was spotless, reminding me of my mom's dictum. Everything should have a place, every place should have a thing. Family pictures lined the walls. Many of them showed Pearl and Ellen growing up from happy, smiling babies into beautiful young women, and then maturing into attractive matriarchs. On a small table in the corner of the living room stood a fragile, single-frame picture of a young soldier in combat gear. He was surrounded by jungle, posing with his rifle like he was going into action. His wide, toothy smile didn't hide the fear in his eyes. On the wall above the picture hung several framed, official-looking documents with Department of the Army written across the top. There was also a framed silver star and purple heart. Hammer turkey, Pearl called. Hammer turkey what? Sandwiches, she laughed. I looked at the nearby wall clock. My 10-minute visit was pushing toward an hour. Josh was going to have a fit. Please don't go to the trouble, I said. I just had some coffee and don't be ridiculous. It's no trouble at all. I sat back and got comfortable. Ham, please. Fix someone eats, Ellen said. He looks hungrier than he's pretending. She was right. Back and forth they went, good-naturedly bossing each other like they probably always done. Independent, savvy, and strong-willed. It must have been traumatic for their lives to have been so quickly wrecked by forces beyond their control. Who am I kidding? I muttered to myself. I'm not up for this. There were tons of people like Pearl and Ellen, wanting to know why the only time their government took an interest in them was at tax time when we're sending their children off to war. What could I possibly do to help these women? I softly said to myself. Pearl walked into the living room with a tray of sandwiches and fruit. Ellen followed her with a tray of cups, a coffee pot, and an assortment of creamers and sweeteners. After setting up the coffee table, Pearl sat to my left on the couch while Ellen took a seat in an old but comfortable-looking lounge chair on my right. Pearl took my left hand and looked at Ellen. Your turn. Let's pray, Ellen said. She took my right hand, blessed the food, and asked for a blessing upon me. In just a few minutes, as I had predicted, I devoured both my sandwiches. It's too bad you won't get a chance to see what my son Lester, Pearl said. He's not home from work till late, but he's the gentlest soul you'll ever want to meet. And we continued. As I was leaving, Pearl finished half of her sandwich and said, hey, Mr. Johnson, we know that we're just throwaway people, but if you get to Congress, Pearl, you're not throwaway people. If it's the last thing I do, I'm going to let her finish, Ellen said. She nodded at Pearl, continued. We've got health issues. We're no longer young and pretty, and we're not wealthy. To society, we're just in the way. Come on, Pearl, I said. I refuse to believe. Believe, don't believe. Either way is true. We were showed the door a long time ago, so there's no point in pretending. But Ellen leaned over and gripped my forearm. Let her finish. There's no point pretending we're important, but when you get to Congress, promise you'll at least fight for us. Not good enough, Ellen said. Win for us. We're human beings, and there's no cause for us for treating us like we don't matter, like we're already dead. I was utterly transfixed by the intensity in Ellen's eyes, quickly filling with tears. Okay, I promise. Ellen sat back, wiped her eyes dry, the tissue Pearl had given her, and studied me. I think I believe you. Me too, Pearl said. Ellen got up, walked over to a four-drawer file cabinet, and pulled out some folders. Just in case you thought we were being difficult for no reason, she handed me the folders. Go ahead, look through them. The folders were stuffed with letters from state and federal agencies. There was Social Security, Veterans Affairs, Health and Human Services, Fair Housing, and more. in the first paragraph, and most often in the first sentence, there were phrases like, "We regret to inform you," "falls outside of the guidelines of," "cannot be approved for," "does not meet the standards for," "rejected due to," "not qualified on the basis of," and so on. Excuses, 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 Pearl said. It's always the same story. "This isn't right," I said. "This is just not right." Pearl took a folder and flipped through some of the letters. "We agree, but we don't know what else to do." Put the letters back into their folders and shook my head. "I've been so wrong." "About what?" Pearl asked. "The campaign, what it all means." "You're asking people to trust you with their hopes and dreams," Ellen said. "That's what it means. Can we trust you with ours?" "Yes, I'll do my best." The phone rang. It was Josh. Pearl and Ellen brought up, then they brought up some blueberry pie and more coffee. "The only reason I stuck around this long is for Lester," Pearl said. "If he ever gets set up so that I know he's cared for properly, I'm praying that God just kills me and takes me home." "Ellen, how come you never left?" I said. She looked at me like I just asked the dumbest question imaginable. "Muskegon is my home." My phone rang again. Pearl said, "Go ahead and answer. I'm sure you didn't intend to spend this much time with us." "It's my campaign advisor." That happened. It's been 16 years now. Just had that conversation with them, and I've never forgotten those. I pray for them. I wonder what happened to them. That's when my heart broke. That's when I found out that a lot of people in politics are just playing around with people's lives, and they really don't deserve our votes. They don't. If they're serious, that's one thing. But I haven't sensed any real sincerity. Beyond the usual, "I've done this, I've done that." Yeah, I know what you've done. A bunch of stuff that hasn't mattered for people on Main Street. That trip to the DCCC that I have been planning, I flew down there, and it's in downtown Washington, of course. And I've been told by the guy that recruited me to run, so you got to call Jennifer Balaja down there. She's the Democratic representative, the DCCC for this area. Talk to her, call her, and she'll tell you what to do, blah, blah, blah. Well, I called her for 1 week, then 2 weeks, then 3, this went on for 3 months. She finally returned the phone call. I said, "Okay, I'm coming down there." She said, "What for?" I said, "To meet with people at the DCCC. This is my first time doing this. I want you all to give me some input, some advice on what to do." So I get there. The D trip is filled with young people, all having that, I'm going someplace look in their eyes. And a lot of times when young people sign on to a campaign, of course they're doing it because they believe in what the candidate stands for, what they're talking about. But many of them are doing it just to punch a ticket on their resume, to build a profile, or on such and such as campaign. They could care less if you win or not, but they definitely want to build their resume profile. Not all of them, but a good number of them. So I got there and announced to the person, the reception, that I'm there. She said, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you?" I looked around and saw a woman seated at the receptionist counter. The sign hanging over her said information, the nameplate on the counter read Tricia Estes. I told her, yes. She said, she held up a finger while she was on the phone. "Yes, Congressman, I'll connect you right away." When she finished the call, she looked at me with question marks in her eyes. "I'm here to see Jennifer Palacia." "And you are?" "Fred Johnson, I'm the congressional candidate in Michigan's second. Is she expecting you?" "Yes." "Let me see if she's in." "But she already agreed to meet with me today." Tricia shrugged and gave me a well-practiced "not my problem" smile, and she punched numbers on her phone. Unbelievable, I thought. I lost count about how often I called this woman, always leaving the same message. "Hi, this is Fred Johnson. I'm the Democratic candidate in Michigan's second CD. Jack advised me to connect with you since you're the district's D-Trip rep. My number is," 1 week passed and no response. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4. Just keep adding, I was told. So now it's here. The receptionist said, "What's your name again?" "I'm Fred Johnson, the Democratic candidate, Michigan's second congressional." Just raised. And I said, I came to Washington to meet with you guys because my sisters are having a fundraiser for me. She said, when I finally did get her on the phone before coming to DC, she said, "Just raise lots of money and get out the vote." That's pretty much it. There's gotta be more than that. "Okay, but I still like to meet with you," I told her. She really tried hard to dish me, but I insisted. "All right," she said in a huff. "When will you be in town?" I told her. Now it's time for the meeting. The receptionist hung up the phone and put it to a row of chairs. "Just have a seat. Kelly will be out soon." Did she say how long? No, she didn't. "Could you please tell her that I'm on a really tight, she had that same not my problem look on her face, which essentially, really, probably more truthfully, is more like, I don't give a. 10 minutes turned into 25, was pushing 40 when I walked back to the receptionist desk. "Excuse me, do you know how long, you know how much longer she'll be?" Not even glancing up at me, she casually flipped through the pages of a magazine. Not a clue. I paced back and forth, glancing at my watch as 40 minutes turned into 55. At 1 hour, I'd hit for the exit. "Mr. Johnson," receptionist said, "Kelly's on her way." I nodded, then watched the office entryway. If she didn't appear in 2 minutes, I was leaving. A flock of chattering people surged out of the offices into the lobby. Their flushed faces, the energy of their babble, and their quick steps overwhelmed the space. Just as quickly, the people cleared, and I saw a lone woman looking around in the lobby. She wore a peevish expression, and her thick round glasses made her eyes look like owl orbs. Her brown hair screamed whatever. In a straight line, rumpled gray dress was the latest in North Korean political prisoner chic. I've always liked that part. We made eye contact, and even as she started toward me, shuffling her feet on the shuffling her feet on the shiny wax floor, she crossed the lobby. "You must be Kelly," I said, extending my hand. She answered with a barely discernible nod as we shook. Her cool, sweaty palm was clammy and limp. "Follow me," she said. I took note of everything as we walked through the office area. Now that I was finally in the Democratic Party's nerve center, all irritations with the long wait were forgiven with each step. The offices didn't look so different from any other workspaces, but so what? In these cubicles, at these desks, on those computers, master strategies were daily being crafted to shake the political earth in 2008. An Obama presidential victory combined with a Johnson win in Michigan's second congressional promised a general seismic shift in politics. Kelly stabbed her index finger at a metal folding chair. "Have a seat." The chair was between a file cabinet on the right and a coffee station on the left. Her desk was just far enough away for a person to squeeze between her, and the station. Once I sat down, anyone passing through would have to step over my legs, or I'd have to swing them out the way. I looked from Kelly to the metal folding chair and back to Kelly. "We're going to meet here?" "Yes," she said, plopping into her chair. "What's the problem?" "Nothing. I just thought that we'd be meeting with a team." "A team? For what?" "To discuss my campaign." Kelly laughed as I sat down and shrank into the metal chair as she grabbed her cup of coffee and took a slurp. "How much money do you have in your war chest?" she asked. "Not much, but then you don't have a campaign." "Not so fast. I got a campaign manager," and Kelly waved to a guy heading for the coffee station. "Hey, Mike, are you joining the game for drinks tonight?" "Wouldn't miss it," Mike answered. Mike nodded a greeting to me as he poured his coffee, then added cream and sugar. I stood up and stepped aside so we had plenty of room to work without splashing me. Busy day, Mike said, glancing at Kelly. "Just the same stupid crap," she said, cutting her eyes at me. Mike gave her a knowing smirk. "Hope it gets better." He walked off and I sat down on the edge of the chair. Like I was saying, I've already got a campaign manager. We're putting together a staff. Kelly groaned and rubbed her forehead. "Mr. Johnson, have you ever run for office?" "No, but the one that you think you can beat someone as smart and well-funded as your opponent. Anyone can be defeated." And I had no intention of, "Hey, Kelly," a woman shouted, hurrying toward the coffee station. "Much to share with you." Kelly's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Hi, Lainey. I'm guessing it was a good first date. This might be the start of something wonderful." Lainey giggled as she fixed her coffee. I stood again, waiting till she finished and sat back down on the chair's edge. As I was saying, I had no intention of running a clown campaign. Until you get a sizable war chest, your campaign is not even fit for a clown, Kelly said. What figure constitutes a sizable war chest? A lot, especially since no Democrats come close to winning that district in decades. I sat quiet, wondering if the Republicans had snuck Kelly to the DCCC as a mole to destroy candidate morale. So then don't you believe a Democrat? So then you don't believe a Democrat can win in the second, I said. Kelly spoke slowly, not someone who's a first time inexperienced, unfunded nobody. I sat back in the chair. You're not going to help me, are you? And she went, no, I'm not. Mr. Johnson, do you know how many people announced they're running for Congress every campaign season? No idea. A lot, Kelly said. And they're all going to change the world, blah, blah. Until you show you're something more than just another idealist with a big mouth, you won't be taken seriously. You mean until I raise enough money to put a fine point on it? Yes. I stood quickly. Thanks for your time. You're welcome. Sorry to be so direct. No, you're not, I said. In fact, you've enjoyed this. Kelly's lips twisted into a smile as I left. I left from there and drove across town to the county where I was raised in Prince Joseph County, where my sisters were gathering for the fundraiser they put together for me. People showed up. Friends they knew, some friends I had. It wasn't a big fundraiser. But then when the Q&A started and people found out I was running for Congress in Michigan, they said, well, why am I going to give money to you when you're running up there when I could be supporting candidates here? Good question. I didn't have it. I didn't have an answer other than I needed more than they do. Wasn't good. But when I finally got there and knocked on the door, Vicky was crying. I said, okay, I know we've had our differences, but usually I usually get hello in. What had happened was that her good friend of 30 years, who also was a 30-year employee with the federal government, Kay had sent out an email, a one-line email saying, don't forget to come to the fundraiser on her computer. Somebody had found out about it. Kay had sent that on her computer at work in a federal agency. And because she'd been first reprimanded, but then they terminated her after 30 years. So Vicky was crying about that. And she didn't say so, but clearly I felt responsible for this because Kay never would have sent out that email had it not been for trying to help me. So now somebody's lost their job trying to help me. Turns out that Kay had violated something called the Hatch Act. I never heard of it before. You can't solicit for campaigns on federal property using federal equipment or anything having to do with the federal government. Which, I'll just tell you, which is why I find it laughable right now that some people are doing things with the federal government on federal government time from the White House, running campaigns, filling their pockets, and the courts and everybody are doing nothing about it. Whereas I know people that have lost their jobs because of this. It is impossible to convince me right now, at this stage of my life, that there are not two justice systems. Like I told people when I was teaching up the Muskegon Correctional Facility in the fall, and one of my students said, well, what do those men do to get in prison? I said, I don't know what they did. I don't know and I don't need to know. They know, and we don't ask them that kind of question. They're a vulnerable population. They don't want to be there in the first place. I said, but I can tell you this much, that whatever it was they did, I'm a guess that it didn't include trying to overthrow the government. They're in jail for their crimes. But if you wage war upon your government, like Robert E. Lee did, you get to become president of a university. Or stage an insurrection, you get to run for president again, despite the 14th Amendment. I mean, in Maryland, there's a saying. In Virginia, there's a saying. You got to fish or cut bait. It's time to cut bait. I mean, either we're serious about the law and the Constitution or we're not. It's not really, some type of ambiguous middle. So I went to the fundraiser. It was a bummed out event. I didn't raise any real money. It cost me more money to fly to Washington than I raised at that fundraiser. And I said, man, this is just not going well. But there was one moment where I got on the phone. I was in that office downtown. And on that phone, I had this green binder. I hated that thing. Flipping pages back and forth, just days I didn't call. Think of cold calling people. Hi, my name is Fred Johnson. You don't know me, but give me your money. And by the way, I'm a Democrat too. So I got the phone. I called this guy up at the phone number of Ludington. And guy answered with a very heavy answer. What do you want? Hi, my name is Fred Johnson. I'm running for Congress, blah, blah, blah. My heart just wasn't in it that day. And he essentially said, okay, I'm not really satisfied with our current representative. I don't trust you Democrats, but you sound like you have a brain. So I'll truncate this just by saying, I drove there and the guy's name was Ahmed Bahari. Dr. Bahari was an oncologist. He was an oncologist. He was a medical doctor with 3 different specialties. I never met anybody like this guy. From Egypt, immigrant. He had fought and battled to get inside the United States, gone to med school here. At the time that I met him, he'd been married 3 times. I guess the way he's the one that's been 5 times by now. But he ran the only cancer center up there for treating people up in Ludington at the time. He essentially founded it, built it, and he had a house on a hill overlooking Ludington, Lake Michigan. It was spectacular. I mean, really, he had a luxury apartment downtown, some warehouses that they had remodeled and turned into, luxury apartments and so forth. He owned one of those, the entire floor upstairs. And so Bahari was on the phone. I was on the phone with him doing the usual spiel about, if you just donate, I'll do blah, blah, blah. And they say, you know what? I don't like the way we're doing this. If I'm going to write you a check, I need to see your face. Then he said, but you're not going to come. You never come. They never come. I said, where are you? He said, I'm in Ludington. He said, where are you? I said, I'm in Holland. He started laughing. Oh, no, you're not going to come. I said, how long will you be there? He said, as long as it takes you to get here, but you're not coming. I said, give me about 2 hours. I'll see you. He laughed again and hung up. 2.5 hours later, when I walked to his front door, he went, whoa, you came. I said, yes. And we talked. Bahari, being from Egypt, he understood what it meant to be an immigrant. He knew what it meant to work. He had worked jobs as a janitor. He had, scraped and scrapped his way through med school. I mean, really, he really deserved every ounce of success that he had because he had fought tooth and nail for it. Arrogant. I can see how he could be difficult to get along with, but a fascinating guy. And he said, I respect you because you actually showed up. You took time to drive up here and see me. So we're to check out with the whole amount. That's one day I remember the campaign where I drove back down here to my campaign office with a check that I had got. It was a good moment. But of course, we lost in 2008. On the night of the election, there were so many people. I was downtown, right across from the City View. I parked in the City View parking lot, just in the parking lot across from City View. I was just standing there in the very bitter cold, just listening as people walked by. I was actually standing behind like a dumpster or something. And people were, excited about, oh my God, Barack Obama's elected, he's president of this brand new America. Somebody said, we're finally a post-racial America. And I went, slow your roll. Just slow your roll. So, I want to believe that, but as an American historian, I've seen the first and second reconstructions go by, where there have been, 3 steps forward and 5 steps backward. So I say, I want to believe you. I believe in hope, but I'm also a realist too. So the balance between hope and realism tells me to as Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. And it turned out that in 2008, when we went into the war room at the City View, Obama, of course, was just, knocking down walls and setting records, and people were very happy. It was just a truly amazing moment. You see all those people in Grant Park, Black people, white people, Hispanics, Caribbeans, Africans, people all over the place, people of every shade, color, background, language, experience, and so forth in Grant Park, celebrating the fact that even people that know nothing about our history in detail, they understood that America's tortured racial past had finally crossed a threshold that night. We've elected a biracial man as president of the United States to the most important job in the most powerful country on earth. Only we could do that. And only we could undo that. Well, we didn't do so well that night, but we did, for the first time ever, we took the city of Holland. For the first time ever, we won Muskegon County. That had never been done. To my knowledge, has not been done since then. We ran a poverty campaign in 2008. We worked our rear ends off. And on that night, it paid. We didn't win, but we did something that had never been done before. And as soon as it was over, the dust had not even settled and the smoke cleared when people were saying, well, Freddie, you gonna run again? I went, are you crazy? Absolutely not. Don't you remember uphill climb, uphill battle? But then I thought, what happened if I gave it one more shot? I said, as I'm laying on or drawing my last few breaths, wherever that may be someday, I don't want to have the thought, whiz through my mind, what would have happened if I just tried one more time? So for all the reasons of the first time, but then now for a legacy run, just to know, so that I could really know, I did it again. That second run was interesting because at that time, Pete had announced that he was resigning from the Congress, running for the governorship. And so that opened the seat up. There were 9 Republican candidates that year vying for that congressional seat in the primary. It was spectacular to watch. They tore each other to pieces. And at one very memorable event down in Zealand, and I just have to tell you all, that when you campaign, even teaching classes at Hope College, so often I spent my life like, I just I told my colleagues in Vietnam, or one colleague in Vietnam, that one of the things that I enjoyed about being in Vietnam or being in Africa is that I'm in a nation of primarily brown people, where being brown isn't an oddity. Okay, where people are not, quite literally, I kid you not, quite literally, I went to see my son on Sunday. We went to dinner in what he called an upscale part of Menominee Falls. And the people sitting at the table next to us were literally staring at us like this. Like we had just beamed in from outer space or something. The woman, she wasn't even trying to hide like that. I thought, for as much as the steak is costing, I can't even enjoy this. Because you're up here burning off the side of my face with a stupid stare. So to be in a country of mostly brown people, where I grew up in the Philippines, or in Africa, or in Vietnam, where this is not an issue, every day, all day, every minute of the day, is relieving psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, just to rest in your humanity. And so I knew that going into that second campaign, that was not going to be the case. I was going to go to parts of West Michigan where this did matter for a lot of people for all the wrong reasons. And they believed me, they let me know. In one instance, my campaign sent me at the Cadillac to campaign, because at the time, Cadillac was still in the district. I said to them, I don't care if there's enough votes up there that can give us the advantage by a 10-point margin. I will never go back up there to campaign in Cadillac. That is the most racist place I've ever been in my life, to include Alabama and Georgia and Virginia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. If you're black in Cadillac, I don't know why you would be black in Cadillac. It's an awful place. But at that event in Zealand, the non-Republicans, the people down there, they went at the Zealand Public Library. We went, there's a candidate forum. My campaign staff like, oh, we can't go down there. because, there's 9 of them and 1 of us. I went, what's the matter with you? I said, is that not where there's going to be a campaign event? Yes. Are we not the candidate? Yes. I said, how do you expect to win a battle if you don't show up for the fight? I said, you don't score victories on the football field by having somebody else play the game. I mean, use whatever metaphor will work for you, but we're going. And I knew that one thing they were going to be talking about down there was foreign policy. To 2009, we were still, I think, still in Iraq. The insurgency was going on, Fallujah, places like that were pretty much common in the news. So they'll be down there, pounding their chest about, we ought to do this, blah, 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 and our troops are the best in the world. Yes, they are. But we ought to be informed by, we ought to do because I have done. And none of them had done. So I went down there that evening with this. This is Marine Corps officer's sword. They don't give these away. You can't buy this. I never seen one of these at a pawn shop. These are earned. You earn this by going to OCS, Officer Candidate School, at Quantico, Virginia. I was just down there about 2 weeks ago, where another one of my students for second year in the war graduated from OCS. They'll be commissioned this coming May. The other one that's down there with us that day, Jake Burkett, he finished up last year. He just finished supply school. He's off to Okinawa. I knew none of those guys would have this. So they set the panel up in the library, all 9 of them, down here at the far end, the lowly Democrat. And they talked and blustered and pounded, and went after each other. We should do this. Our military is this, and our military should not be in wasted lives, and on and on and on they went. So finally, it came my turn. And I said, well, there's been a lot of talking here about the military and America's position in the world and our foreign policy. I said, but you know what? The funny thing about all the people here that say what they would do is that none of them have ever worn a uniform. None of them have ever humped a pack. None of them have ever been on the wrong side of a rifle in combat. That includes me too, almost, but never have. Thank God. And so what I'm telling you is that all these people talking about what we should do with the military and what their knowledge and how proud they are of the military, they've never worn a uniform. I said, none of them can show you one of these. I said, this is a Marine Corps officer's sword. It is not given. It can't be bought. It is earned. To get one of these, you first must earn the title of Marine. None of them have that. And by the way, they also don't have the title of soldier, sailor, airman, or Coast Guardsman. But I do. You see, in that 2010 campaign, I stopped depending upon the Democratic Party. I'd already figured they weren't going to help me. And I went to one event. Toward the end, I'll admit I was really angry, frustrated. And I had met other Democratic candidates who had been asked to run for office. And then the moment they said yes, crickets. I understood that. I recognized that. That resonated with me. And I thought it was so wrong to ask people to do something, because the people that always did this kind of stuff, I spent the first campaign wondering all the time, why is a poor kid from Prince George's County? And that's the thing, that's another thing too. When you grow up poor, the last thing you want to do as an adult is go around asking for money. I mean, some people like Oprah Winfrey get past it. Good for her. Some of us have to work to continue working on that kind of thing. And so it's just a very distasteful thing when that's been your background. So I felt with those guys. We went down they were having a meeting, big meeting, Democratic meeting at Cobo Hall in Detroit, and with the caucus rooms. I was going from one caucus room to another trying to build support. And I saw one guy in the hallway crying. His name was Lance Enderly, running for the Congressional District in the 8th District, I think it was. I said, man, what's wrong with you? He went, he asked me to run. Because this thing is killing me. It's killing me. I said, where's your caucus room? He said, I can't do it. I can't go in to make a speech. I said, let me speak for you then. I've been saying stuff all day long. People said to me, Frank, you gotta stop saying that kind of stuff. You're not gonna get any support. I said, I have no support now. So there's nothing to lose. So I went to Lance's caucus room and said the following.
A year. For an entire year. Except for when I flew home to Washington, D.C. to visit my family on the holidays. Every day, somebody was telling me, Democrats, how hard it was going to be, how difficult it was going to be, how uphill of a battle it was going to be, how impossible it was. And these were the supposed support. I know what it's like to run the kind of race that Lance is running. It is a lonely task to have to remind yourself over and over again that you're not crazy. Especially when people ask you to get out there and do it. I just wanted to encourage you all to give this brother all the help he can. Because I have been going around the caucuses this morning saying that we need to, if necessary, turn off the doggone TVs and stop listening to what the pundits say about how awful it's going to be for Democrats. Do you really think that with a country with an unemployment rate as high as ours, where people with foreclosures that are still fighting, and Wall Street still getting away with money, do you really think that the other party has solutions that folks really will buy into? They're being told they will because the smallest number of loudest screaming voices are commanding the airway. We've got to do a better job of telling our story, or they tell lies, or they have distortions. We can beat them toe to toe, word for word, round for round, to beat them down. They're like playground bullies. They will continue doing this for as long as we let them. If you're tired of it like I am, I know what a long shot looks like. I'm a United States Marine Corps officer, or a prior U.S. Marine officer. Now I'll close with this. I've been saying also these caucuses on the football team, on the wrestling team, as the Marine. I don't know how you win a battle if you're not going to show up for the fight. I know I've been saying stuff all day that people probably don't want to hear. Folks told me it's risky. You're not going to get any support. Can I be honest with you? I'm not getting any support anyway. There's none to lose. The party has a reputation too often for not having enough spine to stand up for what we believe in. We roll over on stuff. We're worried about what you're going to say about us. Lies don't have the kind of staying power that truth does. If we simply can speak the truth over and over again, the truth will punch through a lie every time. It usually does. We need to know what we stand for. We need to say what we stand for. Then we need to move on what we stand for. Cooperate when we can, and we can't move on it anyway. Support Lance for the C-24, not just a lip service, but send him some money, give him some volunteer support, and make sure that, like the rest of the Democratic ticket, he get him in there as well.
There were people on my campaign that had put their careers on hold, they had families to feed. They were working this low-paying wage on the campaign because they believe in what we were trying to do. I saw people up in their lives because they believe. And when people are doing that for you, you have to stay with it. You have to perform. You have to do it. It gets personal. It gets emotional. You fall in love with people. I met people on the campaign trail who said, you got to go after, you got to go negative. Go after the family. I said, this campaign is going to be one on my ideas, or we don't deserve to win. This is not about their family, their dog, their church, their faith, nothing. No, I'm not going negative. Does he want to run it? I know that's how you run it, but you're not running this. I am. See, in 2010, I had a lot more confidence. I didn't have any support anyway, but having been through that firestorm one time, having walked through the fire the first time, I had a lot more confidence to tell people where to go take a flying leap. And I said, you know what? We can do the same thing for the right reason, same platform, without them. They're not going to help us anyway, then fine, let's just be independent and run it the way we want to run it. Have some fun in the meantime. The thing that happened that finally broke it, though, was when John, you remember, many of you remember the longtime Congressman John Conyers. John Conyers had, we had spent months putting together an event on Capitol Hill where people from the Congress, different congressmen, the Michigan delegation is going to finally come down at a place on Capitol Hill, a nice after hours place to meet us and get some support, right? It's going to be a fundraiser. We spent months, my staff spent months laying the groundwork for that. Because these people have busy schedules, you know, so it took a lot of coordination. We carpooled from Michigan down to Washington, down the Pennsylvania Turnpike after months of getting this together, and got there. We had rented the place out. We were all there that night. And John Conyers said, I'll be there for sure. And when the moment came that evening, Congress had a special vote that evening. No one showed up except John Conyers. I know Conyers had his problems toward the end, but John Conyers kept his word. That's why John Conyers will always have my respect. And I was so traumatized that evening, my staff, to protect me, literally grabbed me by my arms and escorted me out, because I couldn't believe that they would lie like that, just not show up. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. They promised on stacks of Bibles they'd be here. So after all the uphill battles and, you know, the racism, the things like driving from Ludington after a late night event, crashing into the berm at the rest stop, and bending, destroying the front part of the car. Going to an event where Bill Hassing was raiding me downtown, at WGBH, and I was so exhausted. I didn't know where I was. I ended up driving down to South Haven when I was supposed to be in Grand Rapids. So I got a call on the phone, and the guy from the station, he said, "Where the hell are you?" I said, "I'm on the way where you are." He said, "We're waiting for you. You've been waiting for the last 45 minutes. And I saw the sign that said South Haven. I said, "How did I get here?" So lots of moments like that on the campaign trail. I was exhausted. And by the way, I was still teaching a full load of classes at Hope. So I did this while working a full-time job. In 2016, I'll close with this. In 2016, I went down to North Carolina. That was the year of the election with Hillary and Trump. And on the way down to North Carolina, as I got down to Southern Ohio, and then into North Carolina, then West Virginia, then Southwest Virginia, then Virginia, North Carolina, I saw Trump signs everywhere. Barns with Trump's name on them. I stopped on the side of the road. I called Lance, my former campaign manager. I said, "Hey man, what's going on up there in Michigan?" He said, "I've been on the phone with Hillary's people and trying to get them, telling them they got to get their ground game up." I said, and the response has been, he said, "They keep on talking about the charts say this and the statistics say that, and this poll says this." I said, I don't care what the polls say. I'm out here on the road right now. In the last 4 states I've been in, I said, there are Trump signs everywhere. Tell them this thing is going sideways. Unless you want him. But their charts, graphs, statistics, and polls are so much garbage. People out here in America, they're voting for this guy. Tell them they better fight. They better fight. I said, the democracy is at stake. How did I know that? I knew because of a guy named Yusuf Salam, one of the Central Park Five, from that crime that they allegedly committed years ago. When Trump took out that full-page ad in the New York Times, say, just eliminate them, execute them. Turns out DNA evidence exonerated all 5 of them. I knew because of the birther movement, telling the people that Barack Obama was not a president or an American citizen. You can't run for the presidency in any party without being an American citizen. They vet you. I know they vet you because as a congressional candidate, I ended up having to answer a lot of questions that I really wish that people didn't ask. They want to make sure they do opposition research on you. Of course, he's an American citizen. People bought into this. But I also knew because as an American historian, I know how much we like to move forward, then move back. We had one civil war, then slavery, then a Reconstruction that still needed to have a civil rights movement that still did not get the job done. We're now in the 3rd Reconstruction. So that's my journey of firewalking. That was my political awakening. That's why I tell people, that's why the job of the act of running as a Democrat for Congress is what turned me into an independent. I won't be in one because they abide the presence of somebody like their front runner, who I believe is an arch racist. And I can't abide the other one because they don't have the guts to fight for the people like the two sisters I met in Muskegon, who still bring me to the verge of tears as I remember what they told me. These women didn't want anybody to take care of them. They just wanted to be given the tools to take care of themselves. Thanks for listening.
Would you like to take a question or two?
Sure. Yes.
It's somewhat related, but going with the 2010 when there were so many Republicans running. In this year's primary contest, how would you recommend a voter vote the ticket when there are so many primary candidates, but not many Democratic candidates?
I would still say to vote like people normally do is with whoever most aligns with your values.
But on the primary, you can only vote one
Oh.
side or the other. So if there aren't Democrats running, competing against each other.
Well, here's what I found out during the campaign also. This is what I told people, about why can't why Democrats have done so poorly out here. I said, what I found out about people in West Michigan is this. Yes, it's been traditionally Republican, but that's not so much the case as it is that there are people who take their votes very seriously. And you might find someone who might prefer to vote for a Democrat, but not going to vote for a Democrat who's a clown. It's got to be somebody who's credible, who aligns with their values, who's going to be serious about it, and they can live with, as a candidate. So what I found is that people in West Michigan are very patriotic. They take voting very seriously, which is a virtue and a good thing, I think.
Mhm.
So they'll vote for a Republican rather than throw it away over here. So if people don't have a Democratic option, they may be left with nothing but a Republican.
But if I can eliminate, or a voter could eliminate some unwanted candidates in the local election
Mhm.
who are on the Republican side, if a voter could eliminate some of those by voting the Republican side and maybe getting some less distasteful.
You're talking about campaign strategy, which I clearly am bad at.
Then I won't take your advice.
That would be my recommendation. I'm sorry, what? No, but I know what you're saying. Because in elections where they have people allowing them to cross over, a lot of times people will fly to the party to vote for them to make sure they win. So that in the following election, they're so distasteful that they'll end up losing.
Mhm.
That's some Democratic. There's some electoral gymnastics. And frankly, I'm not as well versed on who the candidates are in the primary right now to give any kind of informed advice on that.
It's really not about who, it's really not about who necessarily, but what, since on the Democratic side, there aren't competing Democrats in any election. So in this primary, they will automatically go to the November election.
Yeah.
Whereas some of those on that other side, you could eliminate, maybe.
You're smart enough to listen to me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Are your campaigning days over?
Pretty much. I mean, every now and then I have like a cloud that passes over my face, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I should try it again. But then I think about, the fact, I've had 16 more birthdays since then. I've had, and I wanna try and do something productive and have fun in life and whatnot. And interestingly enough, I was downtown in 2016, about a week after Trump won the election. I was talking with a colleague, and somebody came in we were downtown. I was helping her with a project she was working on. Somebody said, aren't you Fred Johnson? I said, yes. Do you run for Congress? Yes. But You ever think about doing it again? No. And the guy went, well, what would it take for you to do it? I thought about it for a second. I said, in order for me to do this, in order for me to do this again, I would need, starting out, $2 million on a war chest that I didn't collect, that I didn't raise. $2 million that I didn't raise, plus pledges of $5 to $10 million more that had to be raised that I'm not going to do by myself. I want bundlers in the north, central, and lower part of the north, central, and southern part of the district who are working in concert with me, doing independent of me to raise money, whether I'm doing it or not. I'll be raising money, but I also need to be out there on the trail talking about issues that matter to the people and policy discussions and so forth. I also wanted the meeting with the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, not near a coffee station, but in a conference room, where I'm talking to people that are movers and shakers and lever pullers that can actually clear the way for me to do something up here. We've proven that we can move the needle. With one Hollow, we won Muskegon. Rob Davidson, who won after me, got the largest number of votes. He was an even better candidate. And still, they don't come to the side of the state. I said, more than that, I want an office from the DCCC set up on this side of the state permanently as a liaison, so that we're not here doing this by ourselves. I said, now, you do all that, I'll think about running. He went, wow, that's a lot to get you to run. I said, no, I didn't say to get me to run. I said, that's what it's going to take me to think about doing.
Kit,
Peg?
I would like to suggest an answer to your question. I think we can have an example of Fred's winning. Whether he runs in the political campaign or not, he is winning people who think values rather than prestige, perhaps. And I think, Fred, you are working with students who are going to be the next generation. You're working with us as students. And I say you have won, maybe not the vote.
Thank you. That's two. Thank you. Thanks, man. Okay. Good seeing you all again.
Thanks again.